All right, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is an educational channel. We take a look at great theories of everything. Cosmology is all-encompassing theories. Theories that you can, rely upon to give you a reasonable answer to any question that you might have. And we are just on our 6th episode here of looking at Daniel Ingram's book called Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha. Ingram is an American, and he went over to the Far East, Burma, Thailand, Malaysia, etc., and spent a lot of time in monasteries over there, and comes back to tell us about his experiences and bring back a lot of ancient wisdom. Prior to that, we looked at, did almost 600 videos on the reciprocal system of theory from Dewey B. Larson, and another 300 or so videos on the ancient Egyptian tree of life. Now, in this book, we are in, I think, chapter 3, whichever chapter is on concentration. Now, he divides it up into really 3 aspects. I don't quite remember what the actual term he uses, but we've got training in morality, and then training in concentration, and then training in wisdom. So we're talking about concentration right here, and how being able to concentrate on the chosen object of your meditation. The training in morality is really unrelated to meditation, or I guess precedes meditation. If you have your proper grounding in morality, it will help you with meditation. But then the concentration refers to concentration meditation on an object, and then training in wisdom has to do with the insight meditation, or vipassana, which he'll get to here a little bit later. So we're reading here about concentration and what will happen if you can sharpen your concentration and bring it into your meditation. Okay. So this is right from the text. Sharpening your concentration may help almost everything you do, and can provide mental and emotional stability that can be very useful, translating to many other areas of your life. Concentration can also lead to very pleasant states referred to as jhanas, Jhanas. These can be extremely blissful and peaceful. Being able to access these states of mind can be ridiculously enjoyable and profound. These states are valuable in and of themselves, and serve the important function in the Buddhist tradition of providing a disposable foundation for insight practice. Okay, that's the training in wisdom. So if you get into a jhana, then that is helping you to provide a foundation for your insight practices. Okay, so providing a disposable foundation for insight practice, in that you can build those states up and then tear them down with investigation of the sensations that make them up, which is the 3rd training. So he'll be getting into that later. I will leave off describing the specific concentration attainments until part 3, to keep this section focused on the essential skills necessary for meditation. As once you gain access concentration, access concentration. Getting into those states is relatively easy. Until you gain access concentration, you ain't got squat. Thus, pick an object, practice well and often, attain access concentration, finish reading this book, and by that point, everything should be straightforward. It's a long book. The world of concentration is vast and contains within it myriad skills that can be developed to remarkable degrees. As the number of objects that we can get good with and the many ways we can tune our minds are remarkably complex, it is hard to clearly delineate a simple and manageable, inclusive list of all the things we can learn in the vast realms of concentration. However, were we to try, we might start with the following. Gives a list of 5 things here. The speed with which we can get into skillful, altered states of awareness, generally called here concentration states, or jhanas. The depth to which we can get into each of those states. The number of objects that we can use to get into each of those states. The stability of those states in the face of external circumstances. The various ways we can fine-tune those states. I will talk more about this in part 3, saving this section for the more fundamental aspects of training and concentration. Now, it must be said that concentration practices, like all practices, have their shadow sides. For instance, pleasant and unusual experiences can become addictive and extremely seductive, causing us to give them more attention and focus than they deserve or than would be beneficial to deeper practice. They can also lead to people becoming way out there and ungrounded, very much the way hallucinogens can. They can cause the real world to seem harsh by comparison, causing us to be tempted to reject the world, withdraw, or dissociate into the world of concentration states. They can also bring up lots of our psychological stuff. This last limitation could be a benefit if we were in a mood to deal maturely with our stuff. Perhaps the most important limitation of concentration practices is that they do not lead directly to the insights and irreversible realizations that come from training in wisdom, as much as we might like them to. And that brings us to the third training in wisdom. This is chapter 4, wisdom, the third training. The third training in the list is wisdom. In this case, a very special kind of wisdom that I will often call ultimate or fundamental wisdom. This may also be rendered as understanding or insight. The whole trick to this training is to understand some specific aspects of the sensations that make up our present experience. By training in insight, we can improve how we fundamentally perceive reality at a bare sensate level, such that our actual sensate experience becomes progressively clearer. This increased clarity can become hardwired into our brains, such that our baseline degree of sensate clarity increases. This increased clarity can have numerous positive and sometimes surprising implications. Great meditators from all traditions have reported that there is something remarkable and even enlightening about our ordinary experiences if we take time to investigate them very carefully. Those who undertake training in wisdom have decided to conduct the experiment to see for themselves if this is true or if those long-gone dudes and dudettes were just making it up. Let's begin by taking it as a wholesome given that there is some understanding that is completely beyond any ordinary understanding, even beyond the skillful altered states of consciousness that can be attained if we train well in concentration. The next premise is that there are specific practices that can and will lead to that understanding if we simply do them. The third and perhaps most vital premise is that we can do these specific practices and be successful. The given, rarely stated explicitly but often implied, is that we must be willing to stay on a sensate level, at the level of the actual sensations that make up experiences, if we wish to gain the promised insights. The corollary of this premise is that we must be willing to set aside periods of practice time during which we abandon ordinary ways of functioning in the world and even the unusual way of working with skillful altered states of consciousness that belongs to the training in concentration. We proceed from the premise that the teachings on wisdom point to universal truths that can be perceived in all types of experience without exception. We accept that if we can simply know our sensate experience clearly enough, we will arrive at fundamental wisdom. Most insight meditators spend their time doing a lot that relates to the ordinary world and or cultivating refined states of consciousness, and they don't realize that this is not insight practice. I define insight practice extremely narrowly, as opposed to morality, which I define extremely broadly, and concentration, which I define more narrowly, but which is still a broader topic. Insight practice is all about putting those broader ways of working aside and instead grounding attention in our 6 sense doors and their true nature. Those are our 5 senses and our thoughts or thinking. While there are clear overlaps among the trainings, even on the cushion, I feel that to try to counterbalance our strong habits of working more broadly is of value to most practitioners. If you happen to be one of those rare people who can focus just on your sense doors as they arise and vanish, and while setting aside focus on morality and concentration, then this paragraph is not for you. There are many wisdom traditions and many styles of insight practice. I will lay out several explicitly and hint at many others in the chapters that follow. When choosing an insight tradition, look for one that is tried and true, meaning that it is either ancient and well tested, or contemporary but demonstrably consistent in leading to unshakable realizations. I can verify that the specific practices I will present can lead to the promised effects if they are done as recommended. Even better, you should verify them for yourself. Now, just to kind of make an aside and ground this in what we're trying to do on this channel, this whole playlist here is called Reciprocal Church, and what we're trying to do is to syncretize the various religions, the Western Judeo-Christian religions, I believe are incomplete and misleading in terms of their scriptures. Their scriptures are what I would call psyops, especially the New Testament, which in my opinion, and which I will be proving on this channel, was written by the Roman Caesars, particularly the Flavian dynasty from 69 to 96 AD. They wrote it in order to pacify the Jews who were rebelling, especially in the Jewish War from 66 to 73 AD. And so they wrote about a pacifistic savior, which flew in the face of all of the so-called Christs that the Jewish prophecies were anticipating, who's going to be a military leader. But the Romans hijacked that and came up with this pacifistic leader. And we've kind of bought into it. The thing is that you talk to a lot of Christians, and probably Jews too, from the Old Testament, who, you know, they look at these Buddhist practices and they call them satanic, and they even, some Christians will even tell you that meditation is satanic and that it is evil and that it's stated in the Bible that it's something or another. Well, this should give you very clear evidence that you're being psyoped. Okay, if a tradition is telling you that sitting there and observing your reality, your experiences, your sense impressions, and investigating them, if there's something evil or satanic about that, then what they're telling you is a psyop. They're telling you don't go there. That's a clear evidence that you're being misled by your religion when they tell you that you can't do certain things because they're evil, even though those certain things are utterly like your most basic aspects of reality. All you're doing is investigating your sense impressions. So instead of thinking and giving blind allegiance to your book, which does not stand the test of history or evidence, there's absolutely no evidence that the New Testament, of any of the events that were listed in the New Testament, that they ever occurred, except for the counter indications of things like when Jesus and Joseph and Mary had to go to Egypt, and as a result of being taxed by Augustus Caesar. But in the Roman record, there is no record of any taxation that was levied on the Jews during that time period. So there are counter indications, but there are no positive indications of Jesus' existence in the first century, other than Josephus, the so-called historian, the so-called Josephus. And if you look at the life of Josephus and you read his books, you will realize very quickly that whoever wrote Josephus also wrote the Gospels. And Josephus's War of the Jews is explicitly sponsored by the Emperor Titus, Vespasian and Titus, the two generals and the two Roman emperors, the Flavian emperors, that are responsible for this. So we know that Josephus, whoever he was, the War of the Jews, was written under the auspices of the Roman Empire, of the Roman Caesars. And whoever wrote Josephus is the same person who, or the same group of people who wrote the Gospels, because they are in parallel. But I will be proving that later. But the main point that I'm making is that if you are having a reaction right now, and you're trying to tell me, or you're telling yourself that, oh, I don't want to try these insight practices or this meditation because I've been told that it's evil or that it's satanic, you should turn that around and instead question the source of who is telling you that. Who is telling you that this is satanic? And see if you can get any type of reasonable explanation as to why that would be. Because what it is that it's showing you that this is a psyop and that you are being manipulated. Okay, back to the text. I'm sorry that maybe is a little bit far afield, but that falls into the scope of what it is that I'm trying to do on this channel, is to not throw the baby out with the bathwater and not eliminate Christianity in its entirety, but to shore it up with some valuable wisdom from other traditions that can create a more seagoing vessel, something that is going to float. Okay. The primary purpose for doing insight practices is to increase our perceptual abilities so that the truths accessed by skilled meditators become obvious. Thus, rather than caring what we think, say, or do, or caring about what altered state of consciousness we are in, when training in wisdom, we actively work to develop the clarity, resolution, precision, consistency, and inclusiveness of the experience of all of the constantly changing sensations that make up our experience, whatever and however they may be. Such are the formal insight practice instructions. Insight practice can seem more daunting, complex, or bizarre than other forms of practice. However, it is oddly simple. There are 6 sense doors. Sensations arise and vanish. Notice this for every sensation. These are caveman simple instructions, yet somehow people make them much more complex than they need to be. And as I said, they impute evil into them somehow. Caveman simple instructions. As a preview of things to come, towards the very end of the book, you will see me repeat the same message as basically the punchline to the whole book, since that was what I found the most profound and helpful of all of the Buddha's teachings. And again, the Buddha, I don't believe the Buddha existed either. These are just teachings. Maybe he did. I don't have any evidence for or against. I'm just going against the, I'm pretty much just assuming that I'm being psyoped in that way as well. But I have no evidence for or against the existence of the Buddha. But I do believe that there was a lot of wise teachings that are coming down that are being attributed to this person. So, should you find your practice getting bogged down in fascinated or aversive reactions to the fancy and flashy topics that follow, return here, as this points to where the real treasure is, your own immediate and sensate reality. Just as with concentration practices, more time and more diligent practice pays off. These simple instructions can easily seem overwhelming, vague, or strangely trivial to many people. So I'm going to detail numerous empowering concepts and more structured practices that have helped countless practitioners over centuries to follow these basic instructions. That said, the above mentioned are the key instructions. While the three trainings share similar elements, there are important distinctions that must be made between them. The gold standard for training in morality is how consciously harmless, kind, skillful, and compassionate our intentions, words, and actions are, and how well we lead a useful and moral life. The gold standard for training in concentration is how quickly we can enter into specific, skillful, altered states of consciousness on our own meditative power, how long we can stay in them, and how refined, complete, and stable we can make these states. The gold standard for training in wisdom with insight practice is that we can quickly and consistently perceive the true nature of the countless, quick sensations that make up our whole reality, regardless of what those sensations are, allowing us to cut to a level of understanding that goes utterly beyond specific conditions, but includes them all. Okay, now those three standards, gold standards, should be understood clearly, I think. And but I do want to mention a couple other things in regard to what I was just saying before. Many Christians and maybe Jews will also say that, well, you know, I've had these certain experiences of Jesus, of God, healing me or whatever, healing somebody else. Those are valid, okay? Those experiences are valid. You're putting it into a package that is attributing it to somebody or someone or something that maybe it's not, I'm not taking away from your experience. I'm strictly going on history here and on evidence. It's just like dreaming or the bardo. When you have an experience, you couch it in certain terms. Like, for example, when Cortez was, his galleons were coming upon the Aztecs, that they didn't see him because they didn't have the, only the shaman could see him because they didn't have the mental paradigm to see these ships. So your experiences are couched by your paradigms. And so if you have a paradigm of Jesus in your life, then that's who you're going to attribute outstanding experiences to. But they could just as well be attributed to the god of the if you were a pagan, to the Gaia, or to the god of the ocean or the god of the lake or whatever. You're couching your experiences in your belief systems. So your experiences are valid, but your interpretation of your experiences may not be. Okay, I had something else to say. Hopefully I'll remember it at some point. We have a couple more minutes here, so let's do a couple paragraphs. It is vital that these distinctions be understood. Considered this way, these gold standards do not overlap and may even appear to contradict one another, when in fact they support each other. As these distinctions seem to be extremely difficult to explain clearly, I will make this basic point again and again throughout this book. Having gained at least enough morality to be temporarily free of agitating negative mind states and enough concentration to steady the mind, turn your attention to the bare truth of the sensations of this moment. This is called insight meditation, which is designed to produce a form of knowledge or wisdom that can transform and free us from our core perceptual misinterpretations of sensate reality. Sounds simple, and while it is simple, it is not easy in practice. There are many types of insight that we may derive from experiencing the world. Usually we might think of training in wisdom as having to do with conventional issues like how to live our lives. In this sense, we might just try to be wiser. Perhaps we could skillfully reflect on a personal or professional situation that went badly and see if perhaps in the future some wisdom gained from that experience might change the way we live our life. This is an ordinary form of wisdom, and so the insights we derive from such reflections and observations are insights into the ordinary world. Such reflections are clearly skillful, but they can only take us so far. To really get what the Buddha was talking about, we need to go beyond these conventional notions of wisdom and attain to ultimate insights by engaging specifically in insight practices. Okay, we're going to leave it there for now, and we'll come back tomorrow and get further into this. Thank you for tuning in today, and have a great day.